This message comes from Allianz Travel Insurance. From visiting the in-laws in Indiana to sightseeing in Sicily, traveling can be stressful. An all-trips annual travel insurance plan can help you tackle every trip you take with confidence. Visit AllianzTravelInsurance.com.
Heads up, this episode contains mentions of sexual assault. Hey everyone, you're listening to Code Switch, the show about race and identity from NPR. I'm B.A. Parker.
And I'm Gene Demby.
Okay, so Gene, I've been noticing something as I catch up on my news on TikTok before I go to bed.
That's how I catch up on the news too sometimes, you know what I mean? No shame, no shame.
See, you get it. Like, we work for a news organization, but we also know what's real.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we have, hopefully we have some discernment, but, I can't tell sometimes.
But, there's this code language that's been around for a while. Have you heard someone use the term unalive? Yes,
unalive. They mean, dead or killed, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes you'll see people use things instead of saying, President Trump's name, they might say 47, or they might just post an emoji of an orange.
Right. And for a lot of TikTok creators, this is a way to try and make sure their videos are being seen by as many people as possible.
Right. And I'm sure they're trying to get around the air quotes, I'm doing air quotes, algorithm, that decides how many people see a video based on what's said in it, on, what the subject matter is, whatever.
Yeah. And sometimes videos can get flagged for their content or possibly get taken down.
Mm-hmm.
So I talked about this with a linguistics professor named Dr. Kendra Calhoun. Okay, we're gonna play a rapid fire game. Okay. I'm going to describe some of these terms, and then maybe you can tell me what they mean. Mm-hmm. So when I say pew pew, what does that mean?
Gun shooting, gun violence.
All right. Unalive?
Could be, depending on context, it could be kill, murder, suicide, anything related to death.
All right. Palm-colored people.
That would be white people.
But Gene, can you imagine on our show if we had to say palm-colored people to talk about all the issues we talk about?
Yeah. I mean, given what we talk about, it would make it basically difficult to get anything on the air if we couldn't just say white, black, whatever.
Exactly. Now, for people who want to talk about race on social media platforms like, say, TikTok, that's a real consideration. In 2020, for example, some creators noticed that if they mentioned a phrase like Black Lives Matter or supporting Black success, they were being flagged for inappropriate content. Same goes for stating, I am a Black man. That was flagged, but I am a neo-Nazi and I am an anti-Semitic, those were okay. Now, full disclosure, that particular problem has since been rectified, and TikTok apologized for an automatic filter that was, quote unquote, erroneously set to flag phrases without respect to word order, end quote. But creators are still leery of saying the wrong thing, and then poof, they reach less people, or worse, their accounts get suspended altogether. So that's what I want to get into today. How and why people feel the need to censor themselves on social media platforms like TikTok in order to be heard. And how it's people of color, LGBTQ folks, and other marginalized communities who are bearing the brunt of that self-censorship. I've been digging into this language gymnastics on TikTok, and I found a paper that Dr. Calhoun co-wrote called They Edited Out Her Nip-Nops, Linguistic Innovation as Textual Censorship Avoidance on TikTok.
Okay, I'm sorry, wait. What are nip-nops?
Okay, according to the FCC, we can't say what we regularly call them, but areolas, Gene.
So we're editing out our nip-nops then. Okay.
Basically, yeah.
So it sounds like Dr. Calhoun is the person we should be talking to get to the bottom of this.
And so a lot of my work has focused on asking those types of questions around race, ethnicity, gender, particularly with a focus on issues of power and digital media as well.
So I sat down with Dr. Calhoun to try to understand more about what she calls linguistic innovation.
Ooh, okay. Take it away, Parker.
A while ago, I started to notice people were like talking and sharing in code, and I realized that some users were self-censoring. But is that necessary? Like why do that?
There's kind of, I guess, two interconnected reasons. One is actual evidence of people's social media content being suppressed or deleted or demonetized on other platforms. So, for example, like LGBTQ content was demonetized on YouTube. Like there's evidence of that. More recently, pro-Palestine content and content coming out of Palestine has been suppressed, if not fully deleted, on meta platforms like Instagram and Facebook.
We reached out to Meta, which owns Instagram and Facebook, and we reached out to Google, which owns YouTube. Both platforms pointed us to their community guidelines and denied intentional suppression of particular voices, especially based on their identities.
Then in the TikTok context, right, people are seeing what's happening on other platforms. But then TikTok and the algorithm is so kind of mysterious, right? It's this black box. It's intentionally opaque. We don't know how it works. So people only have evidence from other platforms and then anecdotal evidence from each other of, hey, usually my posts get this many views, but then when I posted about, say, Black Lives Matter, right, I got a quarter of that. And so it became sort of common practice among people who were concerned about any the particular words or ideas that they wanted to discuss on TikTok, basically making this calculated decision of like, okay, it's more important to me to talk about this idea or this event than to use the particular words. So maybe if I just avoid saying the word white supremacy or Black Lives Matter or Nazi or whatever the word might be, that lessens the chance that, you know, my video will get fewer views like this other person is saying happened to their video. And then it sort of took off from there. But there are also cases where people do what seems like self-censorship, but they're not actually concerned about self-censorship. It's become this sort of playful way of using language on TikTok. TikTok is a very playful space, even when talking about serious issues, right? It sort of snowballed, right? It started with people being like, okay, I'm actually concerned about some of my content being suppressed. I'm going to choose not to say these words. And then people were like, hey, that's a fun thing people are doing with language. I'm also going to see how many different ways I can talk about a thing without actually saying what it is. And then people just sort of kept going from there.
Wait, so some people are self-censoring out of necessity and then some are self-censoring out of sport?
Pretty much, yeah.
And that gap between necessity and sport is fairly pronounced, but not always understood, especially when people use certain online turns of phrase like the word grape.
Yeah, that's rape.
Yeah.
That one in particular, I've seen people have mixed feelings about because they feel like it makes it sound, it's like cartoonish and childish and it feels silly. And
yeah,
when trying to talk about a not at all silly topic. So that word in particular, I've seen people have very mixed feelings about.
But when you have these bursts of new phrases online, there can be instances of total confusion between those who are, say, chronically online and those who are more steeped outside. So inevitably, two different conversations are being had.
Because it's meant to be pretty legible, a lot of times people can infer, you know, or guess or interpret correctly what's being said, even if it's not a conversation that they're part of. But there are times where the form that someone uses is so niche or you need so much context to understand what it's referring to that it does create a very small in-group and a very large out-group. And I see that more just resulting in confusion. So there's the example of Julia Fox, who commented right on someone's video where they were using the word mascara as sort of a censored form to refer to sexual assault. She was like, said something along the lines of like, I don't feel sorry for you. It's just mascara, right? So she was sort of completely on the outside, did not have the context for what this person was talking about. So for the people who did know right, that this person was talking about sexual assault, then she came off as like really insensitive, kind of crass. And then when she found out what it meant, she was like, oh my God, I never would have left this comment if I knew that this is what people were talking about. And people were generally were like, okay, she apologized. She didn't mean it. That's okay. So I see more instances of that where it creates this sort of confusion as opposed to people feeling like, oh, I want to be, in the in group and I just don't know what's going on and you won't let me, as very often happens with TikTok, people will just take up words even if they don't fully understand what it means or how it's supposed to work or what it's supposed to refer to. But that's a whole other conversation.
With this push and pull of language happening online, there is a legitimate need for online content moderation. But it can be a situation where hate speech and discussion of hate speech can be lumped together, ultimately censoring a vulnerable person's experience. So how is this way of communicating impacting people of color or like other vulnerable communities?
I mean, from my perspective, it's forcing them to have to engage in like another layer or another form of labor just to be able to say what they want to say, right? Most people who get on social media want to talk about their lives. They may not get into great detail, right? But they want to say something about like, this is how I experience the world. These are things that have happened to me. This is my perspective on XYZ. For people of color, for other marginalized people, right, the things in society that are considered quote unquote controversial or contentious are very often the things related to our lives, right? Mm-hmm. So when trans people want to talk about the experience of being trans in an anti-trans society like the US, right, you're going to get into these supposedly contentious topics. To even just talk about lived experience, right, then you have to be like, what words can I say or not say? What might get my content flagged? As opposed to just sitting down, opening up your camera and saying, hey, here's a thing that happened to me today. And I'm just going to brain dump, say it exactly as it's coming to my mind.
I spoke with someone who has firsthand experience with exactly what Dr. Calhoun is talking about.
In general, being Black online kind of puts you in a position where your existence on the app becomes inherently political. And I think there's a lot of Black content creators who don't necessarily want to make political content, who then start making political content because inherently their existence becomes political.
That's Christian Devine. He's a TikTok creator with a large reach as a cultural commentator. Christian doesn't have special insights or cheat codes into how TikTok operates beyond being a very engaged and engaging user of the platform. He watches what works and what doesn't, and uses those observations to figure out how he wants to talk about, say, colorism, elections, or hot takes on Beyonce's America.
And then you get into this place where if you want to talk about any of the things and have it reach anywhere, you have to self-censor about your own experience. Versus like people who, I guess, for a moment maybe do regular news content or white content creators who, just do like, here's the news. It's very objective for them, whereas I've seen like people who maybe just do cosplay content where they dress up as characters and they are then forced into these conversations. And then in order to express themselves in these conversations, they then have to self-censor.
So, for example, if a TikTok user is a woman of color who wants to share her experience of being harassed on the street, instead of simply saying that, she'll instead find ways to equivocate, to describe that experience without saying terms like Black, white, what she's wearing, or what was actually said to her.
And so I think, for marginalized communities, trying to talk about a serious subject when you know that if you talk about it in that way, it's going to not get the views you want it to, you have to go through steps, you have to go through layers to describe your own experience.
Coming up, how do you feel about Pew Pew?
Pew Pew, I'm a hater. A lot of those aren't necessary. A lot of those are only perceived algorithmic threats.
Stay with us. Parker, just Parker. Code switch. I'm talking to TikTok content creator Christian Devine about how he navigates self-censorship to get his message across to as many people as possible. How would you describe your average follower?
It's varied over time. I would think my average follower now is kind of someone like me. There's a reasonable amount of like nerdy black men with glasses who are following me because all of our viewpoints like line up.
That's how you get almost 700,000 followers?
It's confusing to me.
I'm looking into the idea of like self-censorship on TikTok. And I was curious, like, do you find yourself, like some of the political content that you navigate or like the historical content having to, like, how do you navigate that through this like world of TikTok?
I guess for one, the TikTok algorithm has changed over the years. The algorithm is nonsense. No one knows. There's rules that someone somewhere knows how it works, but none of the users really understand it. They'll release things, and so over the years, people have noticed certain things. For one, TikTok, it wants to make money, and so if you're someone who's speaking about political things, if you say certain words, and it's less bad now than it used to be, but if you say certain words, it puts you into a category of like, we don't want to show this to people because people are like the word kill, right? People don't say the word kill or murder. They say unalive. And there was genuine reason for that at one point. And I think the algorithm has kind of like gotten more advanced as it's gone on. And now it doesn't just say like, oh, kill is automatically a bad word and therefore we don't show these videos to people. But I think there's like 2 to 3 categories of ways of self-censorship. There's like self-censorship because if you say a certain word in a video, that video they will instantly suppress it and will not show it to people. And then there's the kind of self-censorship that is like optimization. So like there's certain like true banned words, and then there's words that aren't banned but will put you into a category of like less views or like adult content for meeting people. And then there's like just self-censorship for ethical reasons. Like there's words that I will sometimes say and will sometimes not say. I think that's like the way that people self-censor themselves in any context.
Have you found anything that you've done, any videos you had that were suppressed or were cut?
Yes. I can try to think about this. There was a conversation that I was trying to talk about fetishes specifically as it related to race play, because the fetishes part isn't my thing, but this conversation emerged and it became about race, and I was like, I might talk about this. And then it's like, but trying to talk about that, TikTok's like, yeah, no, we don't. That's not what we do here. We reached out to TikTok to clarify its community guidelines and ask about the claims that its algorithm suppresses certain videos. And while they do have eligibility standards for their algorithms, they said, quote, "It is false to suggest that TikTok censors specific words. As we make clear in our policies, we look at a range of factors when assessing content and enforce content based on our community guidelines," end quote. Wait, were you able to circumnavigate that and get the video put on? Yes, but you just start making up words. People who make adult content, spicy content creators, they used to call them, accountants. They just like accountings, they do accounting. And so you just start using these code words that people start to understand what they mean, or even you just censor the captions. And sometimes that's good enough. I will say, like, I am a follower of yours on TikTok, I do enjoy when I'm watching one of your videos and when you put the N-word, you put fellas in the caption. It's always fellas. It's always fellas. Because if I don't, that's one thing. It's that I can say the word, but I can't caption the word. Why? Instantly suppressed. I'm not exactly sure that's the way, if the algorithm's like, if they're like, did you just say the N-word? And I go, no, I said fellas. And they're like, oh, all right, well. Is it a computer program? Is it a collective or people? Is it like what is it? The censorship? Yeah. It's most definitely, there's too many videos. It's most definitely just the algorithm. It's the computer program. It detects things. It looks for things. Even the way it captions, like AI listens to your voice, it tries to assume what the words are, and then you can go in and edit things if they're wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And so with the N-word, I'm like, oh, no, that's not what I...
It's not worth it.
Yeah, it's not worth it, and it's just like, yeah, let me just,
Okay, do you know, do you know that the censorship is for certain, or is it just like anecdotal in your experience?
It's all anecdotal. If you get demonetized, it's mysterious. It's important and mysterious, right? The work is important and mysterious. And you'll never know exactly why, but they will tell you what they incentivize. And it'll be like things that follow our community code, things that follow our ideals. You don't know what those are, but you know that, like, if you do something that it doesn't like, and I'll know because it's like I have 700,000 followers, right? And a lot of people will talk about the idea of getting shadow banned, and most people who feel they are shadow banned aren't shadow banned. Sometimes it's just not hitting like that, but shadow bans are real.
What does shadow ban mean?
A shadow ban is when they don't explicitly say to you that your videos aren't being pushed out, but you can start realizing that your videos aren't being pushed out.
Have you been shadow banned before?
I have been shadow banned before, and
why would you do?
I talked a bit about Michael Jackson and our complicated relationship to Michael Jackson and his case history. And there are forums on the internet that exist about me of Michael Jackson fans who are like, we need to mass report this man. Oh. He is ruining his legacy. And if you get enough reports, even if the reports are done maliciously and aren't backed up, the system's like, well, people are clearly having an incredibly negative reaction.
It's like a fandom problem.
Sometimes, yeah.
All right.
And so then, like, your videos will go from, because sometimes you just have videos that people don't like and don't get pushed out for normal reasons, but they will still get some views, and then if it doesn't catch on enough. But when you're shadow banned, it's like, my video has gotten 2 views in 1 hour. I have 700,000 followers. Something happened. Like,
that's valid.
Yeah.
Okay.
I reached out to TikTok about shadow bans as well, and they said, quote, "We notify creators when their content is removed or made ineligible for recommendation. If a creator believes their content has been incorrectly removed or restricted from the For You feed, they can appeal," end quote.
Have you had these problems as of late of just like feeling the need to kind of self-censor, or like, oh, this is too touchy and I don't want to, the heat's not worth it, or like I may have to like adjust how I approach this?
Not as much as I used to. There are some topics that I do feel a lot more necessary to self-censor on because I do really want, like in this, there's a conversation right now happening about who should be able to have children and whether or not having a disability is it morally viable for you to have children if you have disabilities that you know you can pass on. And I, in this moment, think it's more like important that I talk about the history of eugenics and the eugenics movement in the United States. So I'm self-censoring a lot because it doesn't like words like Hitler, which is, because of obvious fair reasons, the algorithm says, okay, people who post about Hitler are not the kind of things that we would like the algorithm to see. But I still need to somehow get out this message that, hey, even if it's negative towards being like Hitler was bad, I need to figure out if I want people to see this video, I have to kind of self-censor and talk about like a movement that happened in the 1940s in Germany. Like,
that's what you're saying?
It's one of those things because I didn't censor and I noticed that the video got less views and I was like, all right, well, now I need to like figure out how to like navigate this.
I think the kind of the words that kind of get mocked a little bit, like in the TikTok language, there's like pew pew.
Oh,
or
yeah.
How do you feel about pew pew?
I am personally there's a lot of things like that. Pew pew. I'm a hater.
Do you say you say palm colored people?
I'm a hater. I'm a hater. I've always like, and this is, I don't self-censor for most things. Once again, because I don't worry about if I don't get views on something. In most cases, it is what it is. But a lot of those aren't necessary. A lot of those are only perceived algorithmic threats. Saying white doesn't people are either afraid that the TikTok will censor you, which it will not censor you for saying the word white, or that saying white will summon like a horde of angry white racists to be like, how dare you? The algorithm sent us, and now we're going to yell at you for saying white. But this is all perceived.
When we spoke, I asked Christian what he was going to record that day. He wanted to address eugenics, and he knows that it's racist and ableist, and that people of all races and abilities deserve to exist. But he's trying to reach folks that don't necessarily think like him. Plus, it's the internet. 90% of the time, you have to defend your existence to begin with.
Today, I need to explain that eugenics is not simply a slippery slope, that eugenics also just doesn't work, which I somehow I'm struggling to figure out how both to not be mad about this, but to talk about the history of sterilizing people and the mass murder of people and asylums, and the fact that you simply can't breed out disability. Like, that's not just scientifically how none of this works, and hope that none of these words in this very serious conversation trigger it. And I need to self-censor it because I personally feel like I want people to see this, even if they hate my guts because people are very upset with me over this conversation. I needed to reach eyes because I think that even planting the seed is worth my time.
Okay, so how will you self-censor? Like, how do you do that?
I mean, it means like, because I've done it before and it's gotten less views, like in this time, it means not saying Nazi. It means like not saying Hitler, but somehow still like referencing it. And
what are you going to say?
Don't know. I think I have to like reference the time period and like implicated things, because I don't want to make up a word. Making up a word to me feels the worst.
The mustache man from Germany?
The mustache man from Germany. People say the mustache man, and I hate saying the mustache man. And so I think I have to like reference, like, I can say, I believe, I hope, I think I can say the Holocaust, but I don't know if I can like Nazi, because so many people say it in a way that's like positive, you know.
Or you could do it like KNOTSEA.
A Nazi, yeah. That's also, there's so many, a Nazi, the mustache man.
Is that also beneath you?
It makes me feel so bad. I just don't like it.
Is it clear to you like what's considered harmful content on the app?
No.
Okay.
No. There's things that are obvious, stuff that's regular, run of the mill, like this is a social media platform, you can't post things that are brutally violent, et cetera, et cetera. But when it comes to the little details of a word you might say, no, it's never been clear. Slurs sometimes, but not always.
How many people see Christian's videos matters to him, but not just because he likes getting views. It's how he makes money. And that's the case for a lot of content creators.
2023 was the first, like the latter half of that year was when I first started to earn money from TikTok. And they also changed the way that they started to monetize, or rather give money for the content. So within 2024, I think I made like $35,000 explicitly from TikTok, which is nothing.
It's significant.
It's significant. It's not enough to live on in New York City, but it's a significant, if you have another job, it's a significant amount of money. It's nothing to laugh at.
You made $35K and you got to say the N-word?
And I got $35K and I got to say the N-word. It was successful. But what it means, though, is you never know. It makes it, if you are relying on TikTok as a source of income, when you get repeated offenses, that could be like the quality of your video, or if they believe that your video has stolen content, or if it gets taken down. And oftentimes you'd have videos get taken down for, even if there wasn't anything to self-censor about, you wouldn't know. Like, it's a very mysterious algorithm. And so people start treading super lightly, because you know that like if one more video gets taken down, you are not going to be monetized. I think this happened to me a while back, and I didn't even understand why. Like I think one of the month of September 2024. I was talking about, I believe at that time was Kendrick and Drake to no spicy degree. Yeah, so it makes TikTok compared to other social media platforms and other sources of income very perilous. Apart from the fact that like they're consistently and always trying to get rid of it, you also just don't know when it could be taken away. I got my entire account banned because of Michael Jackson fans. And then I was like, it was like that in an instant. It was like one day I felt like I was like, oh yeah, this is going somewhere. And it's like hundreds of thousands of followers. And it was like, oh yeah, like it's gone. And you're like, oh. And I got it back. Like they like checked the reports and they're like, oh, this isn't real. This isn't real. But it was like a couple of days where I was like, I guess like, that's how quickly that went away. Like,
whoa. I honestly don't think a lot of TikTok followers understand how nebulous, like how like fleeting it can.
Yeah, it's always been fleeting and you never quite know. And so, yeah, a large part of the self-censorship is for people who I think, again, it's not the most money in the world. It's in fact probably the worst playing of any social media platform, but to be able to sit down on your couch and talk about things and suddenly you have a few extra $100, it can make a difference, like a real difference. I know someone on the platform who's like a librarian, and librarians don't make a lot of money.
Given the hoops that Christian and creators like him have to jump through in order to make sure their videos are seen, I wanted to know if it was worth it.
TikTok is in itself, I do believe in the platform. And it's one of those things that I feel very embarrassing about, but it's like, for me personally, I don't know what impact I've had on others, but for me personally, and knowing that like the conversation that we're having online is one about disability. 5 years ago, disability was not something that was regularly on my radar. And I think that through whatever magic of the algorithm happened, disabled creators, and I think particularly in 2020, in the summer of 2020, a lot of people talking about like justice and Black justice and advocacy, people were very interested in hearing about those kinds of things. And that brought disabled creators to my page. And if nothing else, I learned so much through just being like access to that. And I don't think that necessarily TikTok does that for everybody, but I do think that there are ways in which like I'll get a DM every once in a while, especially when like things are hot online, people are debating stuff and I'm sticking by my guns about something, and I'll get a DM that's like, hey, like, just so you know, like, maybe you didn't affect everybody's mind, but this was really important to me. And I was like, all right, well, that's got to be worth it, I guess.
That's sweet. On that note, Christian, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for having me. This is really exciting.
And that's our show. You can follow us on Instagram at NPR Code Switch. If email is more your thing, ours is codeswitch@npr.org. And subscribe to the podcast on the NPR app or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also subscribe to the Code Switch newsletter by going to npr.org/Code Switch newsletter.
And just a reminder that signing up for Code Switch Plus is a great way to support our show, to support public media, and you get to listen to every episode with no sponsors. So please go find out more at plus.npr.org/Code Switch.
This episode was produced by me and Xavier Lopez. It was edited by Dahlia Mortada. Our engineer was Jimmy Keeley.
Produced by you? Well, that's a flex. Okay, big shout out to the rest of the Code Switch Massive as always do. That's Christina Kala, Jess Kung, Leah Danella, Courtney Stein, and Verlin Williams. As for me, I'm Gene Demby.
I'm B.A. Parker.
Be easy, y'all.
Hydrate.
This message comes from NPR sponsor Shopify, the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world and 10% of all e-commerce in the U.S. Get started with your own design studio. Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/NPR.
This message comes from Bombas. Nearly 30% of marathoners end their race blistered. Bombas running socks are strategically cushioned to help say bye to blisters. Run to bombas.com/NPR and use code NPR for 20% off your first purchase. This message comes from Warby Parker. What makes a great pair of glasses? At Warby Parker, it's all the invisible extras without the extra cost, like free adjustments for life. Find your pair at warbyparker.com or visit one of their hundreds of stores around the country.